And that's a very appropriate song to open us up this evening. Thank you so much once again for joining us. My name is Jerome Barber. I'm the pastor at Six Mount Zion Baptist Temple, and we are just grateful for all God has done. This closes out our month. We set a goal of collecting 6,500 pounds to celebrate my 65th birthday. And as always,
Recording
our
in
commitment
progress.
and Six Mountain Zion goes above and beyond. And so we took some items up this morning and they weighed them for us. And as of this morning, we were at 8,273 pounds of food. Praise God. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And Miss Angela, I want you to know that there's another shipment coming because just after we sent the truck away, more came our way. And so I'm just blessed and privileged, and I want to do a couple of things. Miss Michelle Herman is the one who coordinates the food drives for us, and she did an amazing job. But I'm going to turn it over to her for just a couple of comments on celebrating our volunteers.
Unmute yourself, Michelle.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Like Pastor said, my name is Michelle, and I coordinate a lot of the food drives. And this one was just outstanding. Um, just want to say a brief thank you to all the volunteers for your generosity. It has been a profound and lasting impact on food insecurities. Your willingness to share both your time and your talent by volunteering says a lot about each of you as human beings. Your willingness to give selflessly to help others speaks to both your strength and the quality of character. When you volunteer, you are committing to share the most precious of resources, that is your time, to make life better for those who are in need. In Matthew 25:40, Jesus said, "Whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." The fruits of your labor make a tangible impact, of course, but your willingness to share your time and talent to lend a helping hand, to show kindness and caring makes the greatest difference in the lives of individuals who are touched by your generosity. While I know that you chose to volunteer selflessly and without expectations of being recognized, today I wish to do just that. I want to let you know just how much your dedication is appreciated. Whether you're a longtime volunteer or just getting involved, you need to know that what you do makes a difference. Words cannot adequately express the gratitude that I, Pastor Barbara, and Angela wish to convey. Please know that your volunteerism is recognized, appreciated, valued, and cherished. And this is not only for those who came out that Saturday and worked for several hours, but also for those who donated. Without your donations, without your sacrifice, this we couldn't have reached that 8,000 pounds of food. So, on behalf of Six Mount Zion and Thrive, we want to thank you so very much from the bottom of our heart. And we look forward to having you come out and volunteer again.
Thank you so much, Miss Michelle. Yes, she speaks the sentiments of our hearts. And so this evening, it was truly a joint effort. We do something like this around this time of the year. Unfortunately, as it relates to food and food needs, people go above and beyond, which they need to around Christmas and Thanksgiving. But it's these kind of uh, lulls in the schedule, and that's what we decided to do. We're what I call a gap church, and we found a gap, and it just so happened to be somewhere around my birthday as well. So I like to be able to use that as a incentive and a motivation to really be a blessing. I've learned that He blesses us to be a blessing. So we are tremendously blessed with a wonderful partnership, and we're going to be hearing from Miss Angela York, as well as Dr. Shauna Johnson, who is the greatest physician on this side of heaven. But we teamed up together, and she'll share more of that partnering with you in just a few minutes. But I'd like to first of all um, introduce Miss Angela York to you. Uh, she has served as the executive director of Thrive Peninsula since 2016. Since then, the organization has increased all of its programs by over 300%, including emergency financial assistance, financial coaching, and food pantry services. Angela developed a strong desire to nonprofit work while at college after going on a 7-week mission trip to Cairo, Egypt, where her team worked with Sudanese refugees. This experience inspired her to dedicate her career to creating a better future for the world through nonprofit work. She holds a master's degree in community leadership and a bachelor's degree in public relations. Outside of working for Thrive, she enjoys spending time with her husband and son, watching the Philadelphia Eagles play, and doing activities with her book club. Of late, we recently, Thrive did open up a free grocery store. She's going to share with you the details of that. It's probably one of the largest ones. If you get me as your PA person, I'll tell them in the whole wide world, but I'm sure there's some that get close. But can we give a warm welcome and greeting to Miss Angela York?
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, everybody. And I am so glad that you shared the total. I had just texted my staff member, like, what's their total? I'm going to be talking to them tonight. So 8,200 pounds. You all blew it out of the water. Everyone at Thrive knows that when we call out and say 6 Mount Zion's at the back door, everyone's like, oh, here we go. We got some food coming in. And really, our shelves were looking very bare when you all kind of swooped in and just dropped off that initial donation, which was 6,000 pounds. And there was just kind of a cheery attitude for the rest of the day because we had really been struggling to keep food on the shelf. So you all have continued to come in and help out at such critical times. So thank you so much. It means the world to us and the clients we serve. So thank you. I am honored to speak with you a little bit tonight about Thrive. I am the executive director. Sorry, my bio's a little hokey, but I like to tell the story about why I got connected to nonprofit work, but really I just want to spend my days in a meaningful way. I want to give back with my time. And I feel really privileged that I get to do that through nonprofit work because I really enjoy it. So anyway, so a little bit about Thrive. I'm just going to say a little bit about what we do. Thrive is a faith-based charity in Newport News. We serve families who are facing financial hardship across the Virginia Peninsula. So we serve families in Newport News, Hampton, and York County who are struggling to meet ends meet. And we help them in basically three main ways. One is we do emergency financial assistance to help them with rent, utilities, childcare, transportation, because we want to keep people stably housed and employed. We want to keep folks who are struggling out of the shelter, and we want to help families who are employed maintain their childcare and transportation. We offer one-on-one financial coaching. This is free and open to anybody in the community. You do not have to request financial assistance to get that service, but we want to help people plan for the future in a way that can help them gain wealth and gain stability. And then number three, Pastor Barb already mentioned, we recently opened the Market at Thrive, which is the Peninsula's first free grocery store, which will serve 25,000 people this year. And so you all are actively helping us do that. We can't do it without partners like you. Besides Six Mount, we have about 80 other church partners on the peninsula who support us in this mission to carry out to help these families in crisis. So we appreciate that from all of you. So I was tagged tonight to talk a little bit about food insecurity, and I thought I'd start by just defining some terms. So a lot of folks don't know kind of some of the nuances with food insecurity. So you can go to the next slide. I'm not sure who's on the slides, but there we go. Thank you. Okay. So just to define some terms up front so everyone knows. So EBT, food stamps, right? SNAP. These are all the same program. You might hear folks talk about them. This is the government program that provides food benefits to low-income families to supplement their grocery budget so they can afford foods. Some of you may know during the pandemic, families did receive extra SNAP benefits, but that has largely ended. There were summer programs which has ended. And so a lot of families are facing food insecurity for the first time because of the pandemic and the way that it threw a curveball at all of us. For many of us, it affected our health, our jobs. Housing costs have gone up dramatically since then. And so I know at Thrive, we have experienced a whole influx of folks who are asking for help who've never had to do it before. And it is hard to do if you've never had to ask for help. And so anyway, that's a long-winded way of defining that term. All right, food bank versus food pantry. I know a lot of folks in the community get these words confused, so I really like to point out the difference. So in our community on the Virginia Peninsula, there is one food bank. That is it. It is called the Virginia Peninsula Food Bank. It is in Hampton off Industrial Drive. The food bank mimics a bank. So they work with the major retailers, they work with the food production companies, and they store and host food for all those things. And then food pantries, which is what Thrive is, there's over 150 food pantries across the peninsula. Food pantries are members of the food bank. So Thrive is a member of the food bank. That means that we pay a fee, we apply to be a member, and then we can go to the food bank and stock up on food. The food bank sometimes charges for food, sometimes doesn't. Right now it's free, which is great, but they unfortunately don't have that much food. So that's why, we rely on folks like you guys to help us with drives. So that is the difference between the food bank and the food pantry. Congratulations, you know more than like 80% of the population. Food rescue. So food rescue, or called food recovery, is where organizations like Thrive and other food pantries go directly to grocery stores and we rescue food that would otherwise be thrown out. So that might be a dented apple. It might be food that was Best Buy today, but according to the Virginia Department of Health is still safe to eat. And so as part of what we do at Thrive is we pick up food rescue probably about 10 times a week, 6 times from Food Lion, from Starbucks, from Chick-fil-A. We make sure it's still edible and safe, and then we distribute it right back out immediately so that that food is not wasted, and that's called food rescue. So the next term on the next page is going to be called food insecure, and so that's kind of the topic tonight, food insecurity. I'm going to read the definition to you. So it is a lack of consistent access to enough food for every person in the household to live a healthy and active and healthy life. And that's from the U.S. Department of, I think it's supposed to say USDA. Sorry, typo. So there's a few key words here that I want to focus on. One is consistent. So you might have enough food sometimes. You might have enough food 75% of the time. But food insecurity is when someone doesn't always have access to the food because maybe they're struggling this month. Maybe they have to wait till their paycheck to go grocery shopping. They can't always get the consistent food that they need. So number one, consistency. Number two, access. Access is if you can't get to the grocery store, you don't have maybe you live in a food desert, which means that there's not a grocery store near you. Maybe, due to your health needs or dietary restrictions, the types of foods that you need aren't accessible to you or you can't get to them easily. That's all about access. And then the third term here that's important is enough food. So someone who's food insecure might be able to go to the grocery store and buy food, but they might say, well, I've got, kids at home and they eat a lot. I've got teenagers, I've got boys, whatever they say, and they cannot afford to buy enough food so that everybody is full, so that everyone has enough to eat. And so when you look at consistent access, enough food, that's what food insecurity is. So you can go to the next slide. So in our community here on the Virginia Peninsula, I have some food insecurity rates. So Newport News is the highest on the peninsula, on the lower peninsula. So they're at 10.7% food insecure. That is 19,820 people. And these stats are old, and that's because Feeding America has old stats. So I'm going to tell you right now that these stats are low because 2021 was a year that you may remember a lot of us were getting checks from the government, stimulus checks. And so these numbers are quite low. And when we see the 2022 stats, whenever they're released later this year, they're going to be much higher. So this is a little bit, they're not the stats I wish I could show you because I just don't have 2022. No one does. Hampton has a 9.1% food insecurity rate. That's 12,450 people. The stats I don't have on here are called the stats for the ALICE population. So if you've done anything with United Way, you might know the term ALICE. ALICE is an acronym. It stands for Asset Limited Income Constrained Employed, and it is referring to the working poor. And so the working poor population are folks who are gainfully employed. I'm gonna read the definition. I didn't put it on my slide, but it represents the growing number of families who are working, but they are unable to afford basic necessities of housing, childcare, food, transportation, healthcare, or technology. These are people who often struggle to keep their own households from financial ruin while they keep our communities running. Because the ALICE population are the people who are checking out your groceries, they're your childcare workers, delivery drivers, gig workers. This is a big part of our community. This is also a group of folks who they don't have $500 in emergency savings in the bank. So that means they're living paycheck to paycheck. If something goes wrong and they can't afford to get new tires on their car, or they miss work, maybe due to something health related or otherwise, they don't have the money to overcome that on their own. And so that percentage, which is representing the whole peninsula, the percentage of people in that category is actually 39% of the peninsula who are one car breakdown away from not being able to afford food. And so it's really a huge number of families on our peninsula who may be struggling with food insecurity at any given time. So I think a lot of folks are kind of coming to realize that the numbers of people who need help are bigger than we thought, or they're certainly a lot bigger than they were pre-pandemic. You can go to the next slide. So I'm going to talk about some common misconceptions about what people think, or what I have heard in my career about people like, oh yeah, people who come to the food pantry. This is what they say about them, right? Like, oh, they might just be bad with money. People are bad with money. I know you all know this, but when we go to the grocery store, right, and we're looking at the cost of our groceries, those grocery costs are 25% higher than they were back in 2020. Not too many of us got a 25% raise. And so if you were struggling pre-pandemic, you're struggling even more now. It's not about being bad with money. Financial literacy is important. We value it at Thrive, but if you don't have enough money, we can't financial literacy your way out of that, okay? Food is just one of the costs, but the other major cost that I think people often, especially people of means, don't think about is the cost of renting. Because if you're a renter, your cost went up 30% since 2020. Housing is the biggest bill in your budget, right? It's the thing you spend the most money on, whether it's your mortgage, whether it's your rent. If you have a variable rate mortgage, your mortgage just went way up. And so I think sometimes folks with a fixed mortgage rate or, whatever, they don't think about people who are renting, but it's not someone's fault that their costs just went up that much. Most of us didn't get raises like that. And the reality is that it's more difficult to live today than it was 4 years ago. And so it's not about being bad with money. And in fact, like I mentioned, a lot of people who are coming to the market at Thrive, they've never asked for assistance in their entire life. So it's just a misconception. The second thing I hear sometimes is people will say, well, why don't they get a job? Why don't they just move into family? Why don't they just buy a car? Like if they didn't have a car. I'm not sure. I'm sure you all have been in this situation where you're talking to a friend, right? And you're telling them, hey, I've got this thing going on in my life. And your friend just immediately gives you the solution. Oh, just do this. Like, oh, your life is so simple. I got the solution right here. Like, why didn't you think about this? And in your head, you're going like, no, this is a lot more complicated, right? Like life is messy, things are complicated. And so when we are talking to someone that we don't know about their life, we just assume sometimes their life is easy. Come on, it's so simple. It's right in front of you. But we don't understand that maybe they can't get another job. Maybe they can't take 2 weeks off of work in that transition, right? Like maybe they can't get to interviews. Maybe they can't move in with their family because they feel unsafe, or maybe it's not on the bus line, or maybe their kids would have to change schools, right? Or if they struggle with transportation, maybe they just can't buy a car because interest rates are high, or they don't have the cash, or whatever. We have to remember that people's lives are complicated, just like our lives are complicated. And simple solutions oftentimes won't just solve things because people are smarter than that. So that's a misconception I hear. Another misconception or something people say when I tell them we're opening up the market at Thrive, right? Like we just opened that in November. We give people 100% choice of the food that they eat. And I've heard churches specifically say, well, we just give a box of food because these people should just take whatever we give them, right? Like they shouldn't have a choice in what they eat. And I have a really hard time with that because it is really communicating we don't value these people. These people don't deserve our help. And the unspoken thing that I think is being communicated here is this person needs help because they must deserve it, right? And we think that in some level, it's our role to make it difficult for them to get the help. And that's not something people say, but it is spoken in the way we deliver services in our community. We want to make it difficult for people. And I think we need to just talk about those misconceptions because we need to break them. And we need to recognize that that is not how Christ would ask us to serve the poor and the widows in our community. That's not what we're called to do. And so you can go to the next slide. Okay, food insecurity in real life. So I thought about different ways I could kind of share what real life food insecurity is, but the best way that I can do that is to elevate the voices of the people who are experiencing it. And so these are real life quotes from people that we have served at Thrive. We do exit surveys. We ask people what the impact of our service has been on their life. And so these are some of the real life responses that I have not edited. The first one says, it is such a relief to see food in the cabinet, refrigerator, freezer to feed my child. Working hard for paychecks just isn't enough. We have so many families who come to Thrive and other food pantries across the peninsula who are working. You know, they're not just staying at home asking for handouts. They're really trying to make it. But if you make less than $15 an hour or $17 an hour, it's really difficult to make it out there. And so it isn't enough sometimes for families to be able to feed their whole family. Next one. Thrive helps us eat better. I'm sorry. Nick, I'm going to go to the next quote. You can go to the last slide. Sorry. Thrive helps us eat better and make meals in a healthier way. Sometimes I can't afford to eat well, and I opt for multivitamin for me and Flintstones for my son and niece. You can get vitamin C from oranges and vitamin A in the apples we receive. A doctor told me it's better to eat your vitamins in food than in supplements. This was one of those things I read, and it just made my heart break because this woman or this man wants to feed their kids healthy, and they can't afford it. Because as we all know, sometimes buying chips or pre-made foods can be cheaper than buying fresh produce, which is, you know, what keeps us healthy. And I know there's a lot of long-term health outcomes that we might talk about in this conversation, but produce, you know, healthy, fresh foods are the best things we can eat, and they are unfortunately very pricey. I came to thrive when my kids and I had nothing to eat in the house after my fridge and pantry were stocked and we felt like everything was going to be okay. Being food insecure affects our mental health, our mental wellness. If we are constantly worrying about where's our next meal coming from, we're carrying such a big weight of stress. And so by feeding people, we can actually help their mental health, and allow them to think about lifting up their life by, becoming educated or training or reaching for new heights in their career, which will help them become more stable. The last one on this page says, when you need help, it is good to have that need in one place instead of going to 5 or 6 places. I think sometimes we think, oh, there's all these resources in the community, like it must be so easy to get help. But the reality is that the resources can be spread apart. It can be difficult to get an appointment. It can be difficult to access. When you are struggling in poverty, you might already be working multiple jobs, taking care of your kids. You don't have time to try to navigate that system. So it adds an extra stress. You can go to the next page. Just a couple more here. This one says, it saved us. We had no food at the moment, and everything we got from my kids, everything we got there, my kids loved. They were so happy. I don't know about you all, how many of you have kids? I have a 4-year-old, and I can try to feed him green beans and corn all day. He's not going to do it. So I think it is so important for these families. We give them the choice to select their food so they can get what's best for themselves and their family. Last one. If it was not for Thrive and the Virginia Peninsula Food Bank, my family would have starved over the last year. My husband had a liver transplant, and he and I were both out of work for 5 months. When we applied for EBT, we were denied because we made $2 too much. That's very common to hear. Of course, at that time, eggs were $6. I don't know what I was supposed to buy with that $2. Thankfully, between Thrive and the food bank, my family was able to eat well. Thank you all so much. So I want to just demonstrate in this quote here that things happen. Life is complicated. Almost 20% of the people we serve struggle with health needs and health interruptions that have made them unable to get food or services. So we just have to kind of assume sometimes that people have a lot more going on than the eye meets. So we have to, show grace and love to our neighbors in need. Next slide. So I think so we just opened, I'm just going to talk a little bit. I have just a couple minutes here. Thrive Peninsula. This is our place. This is the space you've been gainfully donating to and being so generous with over the years. This is our new location. We just opened in November. You can go to the next slide. We opened the Market at Thrive. So this is our free food grocery store. It is 100% self-select, so families can choose everything they take home. If you donate green beans, it's picked up by a family that eats green beans. That's a win, right? We also focus on fresh and healthy foods. You can see we have ample produce every day. We actually give out milk and eggs to the families as well. And they can visit us for a week's worth of food every 30 days. And so we have welcomed, at this point, thousands of people. I think over 12,000 people this year. We're serving 500 people a week, and our appointments book up fast. So we are actively trying to add more shifts and gain more food so we can continue to expand our accessibility for more families to get our services. You can go to the next slide. Just a few more things. We actually have a courtyard garden that we maintain. We have about 9 garden beds where we grow our own produce. Fresh produce. When you pick a piece of fruit off of a plant, it's actually at its peak nutrition. And so we're picking fruit and produce, distributing it the same day, and families can go home and cook it and get the most nutrition. It is awesome. We actually do need more volunteers to help us harvest. So if that's you, please let me know. Please let Pastor Barbara know. We'd love to have you at Thrive. You can go to the next slide. And then last, in our lobby, we have a free bookstore where we offer free brand new books to kids, youth, that they can come and select books with every single visit to promote literacy and learning. And then we also have another program that is emergency financial assistance and financial coaching. So we can help families who are struggling with bills so that we can pay that gap of the rent and utilities so they don't become homeless. You can get trained. Anyone here can get trained to become a financial coach and become one of our volunteers. And we would love to have you. So again, there's ample opportunities for people who want to volunteer. So just let me know. We'd love to have you in our space. And then you can go to the next slide. We also have a program called Level Up. This is open to anybody in the community. It is ongoing financial coaching where we can help folks reach their goals. So it could be improving your credit score, building an emergency savings, creating a debt. This is open to anybody. We're really trying to work on expanding this program in the coming months because we want people to reach financial wellness and healthy financial footing. And then that's my information. So thank you all for the opportunity to share. I was given 20 minutes and I used exactly 20 minutes. So.
Thank you so much, Miss Angela. We appreciate that. And you nailed it. You sure did. You nailed it. Next, we have Dr. Shauna Johnson. She's a specialist in family medicine and board certified by the American Board of Family Medicine. Graduated from the University of Virginia School of Medicine in 2003. Completed her internship and residency at Riverside Regional Medical Center. Dr. Johnson has a special interest in diabetic care and women's health. She chose family medicine because she enjoys caring for the entire family. Her quote is, "I care for my patients not because it's a job, but because it's my mission." She currently is practicing at Riverside Elizabeth Lakes Family Practice in Virginia, married to Wallace D. Johnson III of Surrey, Virginia, for 28 years. They have two children, Wallace and Lydia, and they're active members of Six Mount Zion Baptist Temple. And I am her number one patient. She's my number one doctor, and she takes good care of me. Can we welcome Dr. Shauna Johnson to share with us this evening?
Good evening. Good evening. I just wanted to quickly touch, Angela did an excellent job explaining food insecurity, so I don't need to do any definitions. I just wanted to talk about a couple of the health challenges. Angela did bring them up, but there's a couple of things I wanted to get into a little bit further. Next slide, please. First thing is the challenges with insecurity of food. We talk about making decisions, tough decisions of what we're going to do. When you don't have enough employment or lack of employment, you have insufficient income, which means you have tough choices. Are you going to buy food? Or are you going to buy your medicine? Next slide, please. That cycle, unfortunately, leads to nutrient poor diets. Those diets that are poor in nutrition lead to obesity, heart disease, hypertension, diabetes, and other chronic diseases. Next slide. The big question, and I loved what Angela said, is it possible to eat healthy when you don't have resources? And it is very difficult. So how do we access nutritious food and food in a food insecure community? Well, we talked about the food bank and food pantry. And I love the fact that families can pick the healthy foods that they want to eat by using a resource like Thrive. Next slide, please. So the main health conditions that we talked about are diabetes. Diabetes is obviously 100% linked to diet and obesity. And if someone is not eating properly, it's hard for them to really control their diabetes. I just want to share a brief story. It broke my heart this week. I had a 12-year-old girl who I just had to diagnose with diabetes, and her father said they just cannot get to a good food source. They don't have a car, they don't have a way. And so, Angela, I'm going to reach out to you because that's one of the questions. It's like, how do people who don't have cars, how do they get to a place like Thrive to get assistance? The other thing we talk about is hypertension. If you have foods that are high in sodium, that's going to lead to hypertension and chronic kidney disease. And then the part that we don't talk about is how food insecurity causes mental health issues, anxiety and depression. People get depressed when they can't eat. They get depressed when they can't provide for their family, and they get quite anxious. And we see that a lot with new mothers. Unfortunately, we see the highest rates of postpartum depression among households that are food insecure. And then more importantly, as I just mentioned earlier, this food insecurity really puts a big mark on our children's well-being. And we see a lot of issues with children, especially in their early ages, that then go on to problems later on in life when they're food insecure as children. Next slide, please. So our children are more likely to have obesity when they're food insecure. We have more issues with anemia. We have more issues with asthma. And believe it or not, we have more anxiety, more hyperactivity. Those who aren't eating are more likely to bully. And we're more likely to see them having other social issues that are related to not being able to eat proper foods. Next slide, please. So food insecurity also leads to early mortality. People who don't have the right foods, the right types of foods, are more likely to die. Studies have shown they're more likely to die 9 years earlier than their counterparts who have food security. Next slide. So solutions. This is just a quick, brief summary. Giving more. We talk about the nutritional assistance programs that Angela talked about, and just hoping that we, work through our government counterparts to try to give more to people who need more, especially as we talk about the cost of things costing more. Reducing food waste. I love how Angela says they're able to go to places that instead of allowing them to throw the food away, they get the food and actually share with other people, making sure that it's not, damaged or anything, but at the same time, getting rid of food waste would help a lot. And then we talk about free lunches at schools, because oftentimes if we could give just free lunches out to the kids without there being the stigma of a child having free lunches, it would actually help the child health development, and they won't feel as anxious about getting a free lunch. And then, of course, we just talked about volunteering at the food banks or food pantries. I love how Angel says we could come and pick things out the garden. That sounds exciting. So those are things that we can do to help. Next slide. And that's it. I just wanted to touch on those few issues.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We are going to open it up for any questions that you might have of Miss Angela or of Dr. Johnson as it relates to food insecurities.
Angela, this is Sharon. How are you? And my question was, when the families come and get the food, is it based on the number of members? I know at one time it was based on that and maybe weight. How is it handled, ma'am?
Yeah, great question. So we check families in. The only thing that we ask them is that they provide IDs for everyone in the household so we can verify the number of folks that live there. And then every family gets unlimited produce and unlimited fresh stuff because we want to focus on the healthy foods. But then every column tells you how many items you can get based on your family size. So we have 3 different categories of family sizes. We have 1 to 2 people, 3 to 4 people, and then 5 and up. And so they each get a color. And then as you walk around the store, each aisle has a colored number that tells you how many items you can grab. So we just do it to try to be equitable and fair to everybody. But that's a great question.
Thank you.
And Sharon used to be, is that Sharon Osborne? I can't see you.
Yes.
Yeah, so Sharon used to be one of our financial coaches, and she's probably going to come back. So if you have any questions about that, you just ask her and she can tell you.
No pressure, no pressure.
No pressure.
Well, anyone else have a question? I just wanted to pose this to Miss Angela, just volunteering opportunities there at Thrive.
Yeah, so we are looking for folks who can volunteer over the summer. Summer's our biggest time of need. As Pastor Barbara mentioned, a lot of folks think winter is the biggest time of need. It's actually summer because families are home and kids aren't getting the free and reduced lunches. So we are looking for substitutes who can just volunteer for 2 hours a week or every other week. You can pick your shift. You're just subbing in for all of our regular volunteers who go on vacation. We lose all of our college students during the summer. And so it's low commitment. So if you're a teacher, you're looking for something to do, let us know. Kids can come if they're 16 or older. If you have a truck, we love for families to help us with the food. Oh my gosh, I just lost the name. The pickups from the grocery stores. We pick up from stores about 10 times a week, and sometimes we need substitutes. Even if you're just willing to drive to Starbucks, you don't have to have a truck. If you have like a hatchback or something, we can make it work. So let me know. And then the third thing we really need is if anyone speaks fluent Spanish, we are serving a high influx of Latino families, and we only have about 2 volunteers and a part-time staff to serve them. So we're looking for more folks who can help us welcome those families and provide services. And if you want, I can, in the chat, I'll drop the website where you can sign up to become a volunteer.
That's perfect.
I just wanted to say this was awesome, 2 awesome presentations, and I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot. I wanted to ask about how many people overall do you think you serve in a month's time?
We serve about 2,000 people a month through the food side. I'd have to do the math on the financial. We serve about 100 people through our financial services a month. So.
What are the qualifications for being a financial coach?
So to be a financial coach, you just have to be willing to take the training. So we partner with the Virginia Cooperative Extension Office. You take a 20-hour training and you can become a master financial educator. So if you don't have a master's degree and you want people to call you master, this is your chance. So you take a 20-hour training, it's online in the evenings, and then you sit down, you shadow one of our financial coaches and make sure you feel prepared, and then you're qualified to work with the families we serve.
Excellent, excellent.
I learned a lot going through the financial coach.
I have a question. This is a great presentation. I echo what Link Joy said. And I actually sent you a direct message, Angela, to talk to you offline about some projects that I think that will be good on partnership. But in your library, do you have anything on maternal health?
So the library is focused on kids. So it's mostly like board books and youth reading. Yeah. So all of our adult books are actually just donated.
Do you do cooking classes?
I want to. Are you going to help me with that?
Okay, well, we'll talk. We'll talk.
And I was trying to figure out how to reply to your direct message.
That's all right. We'll talk. We'll talk.
Yeah.
We'll talk.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, ideally, so my plan is I want to do cooking demos in the lobby, like at Sam's Club or whatever at Costco. You get samples so that we can, come up with recipes and give people samples as they walk in for the produce that we have, for instance. And then I actually had a meeting today with Bon Secours, and they seem like they could help with some of the cooking classes, but I would love to offer that.
Any other questions? That was the Bishop Galen Kunoitan that is with us. We are so honored.
One question.
Now, you're the real bishop.
Has any of the families come to volunteer that came to get served?
Yes, we actually do have, I think right now, I didn't mention that we have about 215 weekly volunteers at Thrive who deliver all of our services. I think we have, off the top of my head, I know we have 3 of them that are clients who receive services.
All right. Anybody else? Any other questions? If not, we'll get some closing remarks from Dr. Johnson and from Miss Angela. Any other questions?
I'm not seeing any other hands at this time.
Okay. All right. Dr. Johnson.
I just wanted to thank everyone for participating in this community Zoom. I'm just super excited about the volume of food that was donated through the church. I think that was awesome that we got over 8,000 pounds. And when it comes to, and Galen brought this up about maternal health, I think that is something that we definitely need to focus in on, because again, it kind of starts at birth and working with the family. So, as we pivot with helping, we definitely should look at the maternal health side of food insecurity as well.
I'm sorry, I do have a question. So, Angela, how do you all determine what food items that you need to collect? Is it based on your population? When you're sending out requests for the peanut butter and jelly, how do you all determine that?
So we get food from a variety of places. One is from the food rescue, which is mostly fresh foods. We get food from the food bank, and just based on what they generally have available, we kind of know what they're going to have. And then we have a staff member on site who coordinates the drives with the churches. And so she spreads out like the different items so that we know that, okay, we have a gap in this. And then we send it over to you guys and you just totally fill it, and then it's off the list for like 3 months. So that's great. But we kind of have an idea of where we get all our foods. And so we just kind of track, like we know what we can get, we know what we can't get. And so a lot of the foods that we ask you all to give are oftentimes the things that we always need. I mean, jelly, for instance, you could donate jelly all year round. We always need it. Peanut butter, just like kind of some basic essentials. Cereal, if you consider the fact that every single week we serve 500 people, almost all those people want a box of cereal. That's the volume we're distributing. So, yeah, that's how I'm sorry, I'm still talking, but anyway, that's kind of how we know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. And any closing remarks, Miss Angela?
I just appreciate you all. I appreciate what Dr. Johnson said. I'd love to get your presentation as well, because I think in my role, I really see it as, obviously I'm trying to raise resources for Thrive, but I also want to educate people that they know the value of food insecurity so I can rally more support towards it. So I appreciate, I definitely learned some things. And I just want to say thank you to Pastor Barbara and Michelle for just rallying so much support from Six Mount. Just can't say enough how grateful we are to you all.
And we're thankful for the connection that we have, and really looking forward to doing some more together. Thank every one of you. Thank you so much, Miss Michelle, as she continues to help us to rally our volunteers and create those moments. I did talk with Miss Michelle, and there are opportunities that we will be able to actually go on site and volunteer, and we're going to put some ministry teams together that Thursday swap, and and look for other opportunities to volunteer as well. This whole community forum was the brainchild of Dr. Johnson, and so I can't take credit for it. I just do what my doctor says to do, and um, I am thankful for her gift and what she does in the community, and just consistently keeping us strong and healthy. I hope you all are seeing the comments that are coming up. We did record this, and so we'll be able to go back and look at some of those. But looking forward to doing more of these kinds of forums to be able to really fight this thing called food insecurities. It just boggles my mind that in 2024, there are people in America in the Hampton Roads area that just don't know where their next meal is coming from. And there's a awful amount of food that we waste on a regular basis. And I pray that we're better stewards of what God has blessed us with. And then, of course, thank God for Miss Angela and the work that they do at Thrive. And I appreciate so much all that you're doing. Also, none of this would happen without Miss Cassandra Murphy. Lord have mercy. She is the IT guru, and helps us to keep us straight, and had some help on this end, Brother Daniel, to get us on Facebook and on YouTube as well. So Don't want to take too much of your time. Thank you all so much, each and every one of you, each and every one of you. So I need you to, movement is medicine. And so there's a movement that I want you to do now that will help to release some endorphins. And so take your right hand and put it on your left shoulder. And take your left hand and put it on your right shoulder. And squeeze real hard. That's a hug from me. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Come on, I give good hugs, better hugs than that. All right. Thank you so much. Stay in tune with us. If you're watching us on Facebook or YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the channel or like us and share us. And more of these kinds of opportunities, I'm sure the wheels are turning, Michelle. And so more of these opportunities are coming down the pike. But once again, as we started off, this was a way to close out. We started at the beginning of April. Our goal was 6,500 pounds to celebrate my 65th birthday. And the Lord has blessed us. We're at 8273 as of this morning, but some more has come in. So I don't know if that's the Lord sending a message, not 65, maybe hit the 80s as well. So amen. But we're thankful for the families that are being blessed as a result of your generous giving. So once again, thank you so much. Have an amazing evening. And I pray that God's blessings will continue to be on you.
Recording stopped.
Okay, thanks for having me. I think
Well,
hopefully
thank you,
we were
Miss
looking
Angela.
for.
That was amazing, amazing, amazing. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate
Have a
it.
good night.
You as well.
All right. I'm gonna end this, Pastor Barbara, and I think we're good to go.
All right.
All right,
Thank you
and
so
then
much.
record it, and I'll once it downloads to the cloud, I'll email it to you.
Okay, I appreciate
Okay.
it. Thank
All
you
right.
once again.
You're
All
welcome.
right.
Good night, everyone.